Thank you very much for your patience. We are now going to resume the JIRCAS International Symposium and move on to the panel discussion. Dr. Yasunari Fujita is the moderator of this session. We have 8 panelists today on the stage. From your left, Dr. Krishnan, Dr. Hasegawa, Dr. Ehara, Dr. Prateet, Dr. Nagatoshi, Dr. Matsuoka, Dr. Beni Prasad, and Dr. Yamanaka. Now, I would like to pass on to the panel chair, Dr. Fujita.
And this is Yasunari Fujita, and Program Director of the Food Program in JIRCAS. So now we are currently facing the intertwined crisis of biodiversity and environmental degradation and malnutrition. Our food system depends on the genetic resources, and their conservation and use requires urgent action. So there is a boost to scientific debate to promote resilient crops, and the technology for their use is rapidly evolving. And the momentum needed to accelerate that opportunity. So first, we will discuss how to unlock the potential of resilient non-major crops. So Dr. Krishnan, so in your keynote speech, and you share the historical perspectives and future prospects and for the conservation and use of genetic resources. So can you tell us more specifically global and discourses on the opportunities and to unlock non-major crop genetic resources in the age of global boiling?
Thank you for the question. You know, in my talk, I did talk about an initiative, a global initiative called the VAX initiative, which stands for Vision for Adapted Crops and Soils. And this initiative is through the U.S. Department of State and headed by the Dr. Carrie Fowler, who was the 2024 World Food Prize laureate. So for the VAX initiative, the objective is to improve nutrition, food security, and resilience to climate change through the development and cultivation of climate-resilient and demand-driven crops, while also prioritizing soil conservation as the foundation of soil health. So, the VAX, through the U.S. government, they have been, they have an implementers group, and the Crop Trust, along with the CGIAR, led by CIMMET, the IFAD and FAO are the main implementing partners. So last year, we got funding through the VAX initiative from the Norwegian government to develop programs for opportunity crops in Africa. So we're calling the program a BOLDER, which is under a BOLD project, which BOLDER stands for Building Opportunities for Lesser Known Diversity in Edible Resources. So we are currently working in 4 African countries, which is Benin, Ghana, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the way we do, I showed the 4 pillars. So we look at conserving and utilizing crop diversity, research, evaluation, breeding, seed systems development, as well as policy, enabling environment. So, we have, in all these 4 countries, we have selected 2 crops each based on stakeholder consultation. So we work with farmers, seed suppliers, and all of the different stakeholders, bring them together to identify these crops, because we need buy-in from everyone to improve the crop. And so that is one of the projects, and recently we got funding from the German government as well as Irish government, and we have developed a funding facility called the Power of Diversity Funding Facility. So next year we'll initiate the Power of Diversity pilot project, and the 5 additional countries, and 3 in Africa, which are Rwanda, Nigeria, and Zambia, and then 1 in Asia, which will be India, and then in Latin America and Colombia. So we will use almost the same process, and we will start working on all of these are 5-year projects, because to see impact, you need a little bit of time to make sure that seed systems are developed, all of these things are in place. So that is the project that we are currently working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krishnan. So the next, and Dr. Nagatoshi. So from a resilience and nutrition point of view, the quinoa is a very interesting crop. So how do you think the lessons and from quinoa will contribute to advancing research of resilient crops?
Thank you for asking the important point. As already mentioned, Sarada-san, using unutilized crop, I say orphan crop, are very important for future food and nutritious security. In this point, I think the progress of quinoa research, including establishment of the breeding platform, and also finding genes involved in useful agronomical trait, will provide a roadmap for utilization for the other orphan crops. I hope so. In addition, for major crop, I think new findings from quinoa or the other orphan crop is useful for their improvement. As presented in this symposium, maize and rice, major crop research is at the forefront of the plant science. But I strongly believe that we will find new mechanisms or new genes involved in high nutritious content or stress tolerance from quinoa. So I expect these findings give a new hint for major crop improvement. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nagatoshi. So the next, Professor Ehara. And sago can be grown in the poor environments. So, can you talk about the innovation and policy challenges and opportunities needed to unlock its potentials?
Thank you, Dr. Fujita. So about the very important questions you just talked. So first, I'd like to talk about the innovation. So recently, the NGO and so supporting the partner organization in Indonesia, so they'd like to expand the opportunity to utilize the sago palm. One of the new challenging is to plant the sago palm at the post-mining site. So for the devegetation, because the post-mining the area will have the serious problem in the soil, and so so such kind of the opportunity to expand to sago utilization will be expanding. However, when we increase the opportunity to utilize sago palm, of course, sago starch production will be increased, but at the same time, the amount of the residue also will be increased. Actually, at this moment, almost half of the stored carbohydrate starch in the trunk will be remained after the starch extraction in the residue. So how we can utilize such the remaining the resource, it will be one of the very important the agenda. For finding the better solution, we are working with our former international students, for example, to produce the biodegradable material, the sheets, like the styrofoam-like the material. However, to expand the opportunity to utilize the residue, probably much more the easy access the devices should be prepared. So another example is for producing the organic fertilizer utilizing the sago the residue. Our partner in the Sulawesi Islands, they are trying to utilize such the organic fertilizer for the post-mining the area. So this will be one of the recent challenges. So then, yes, about the the policy. We expected the new challenging from the producing country. So if we introduce the one example from Indonesia, so government of Indonesia started to support the development of the infrastructure for the sago starch, sago producing area, because the sago, the center of the sago production area will be very far from the large the city. It will be very difficult to provide the material for their consumers. That's why they started to select the several provinces to support to develop their infrastructure. So yesterday I heard the news from the Philippines. So our partner organization in Philippines, so they got the new budget to utilize sago resource to be the one of the components for their ecology services, like the Satoyama activities. So such kind of the new the trial from the support under the local and central government will be already launched. So we'd like to support their activity together with our partner organizations.
Professor Ihara, and thank you and for your good news. And next, and Dr. Somte, and despite its socio-economic importance, mung bean and has a low yield and susceptible to biotic and abiotic stresses. So you talked about technological advances in overcoming and stress tolerance. So what conditions can accelerate and enable the development of more resilient varieties?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think the availability and the easy accessibility to the diverse genetic resource will be the key to rapid development of the climate resilience cultivars. And also, for example, in my case that I shown in my presentation, we screen a lot of the germplasm for the salt tolerance, 1,000 of germplasm, but finally we got one from the wild mung bean, only one exception that showed the resistance, and now we are using it for the development of the new cultivar with the salt tolerance. And also for the minor crops such as the mung bean, the availability of the reference genome and the genomic tool is very important to push forward the new cultivar development. Okay, that's it all.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Somte. So, in conclusion, thank you for such interesting topics as policies such as the vision for adaptive crops and soil parks initiatives. So attempt to unlock the secrets of the quinoa, high nutritional value and stress tolerance, and use them to create resilient crops. And innovation of policies initiative around the sago palm, and the issue of the gap between the traditional breeders and plant biotechnologists. So we move to the next to harnessing resilience in major crops. So to ensure food security, it is essential to ensure the resilience of staple crops. So opportunities and trade-off for the use of genetic resource diversity. So the development of the latest technologies and needed for the international initiatives. So next, I would like to ask the panelists about the opportunities and challenges of the harnessing resilience in major crops. So, and Dr. Hasegawa, so, and you talked about the IPCC's viewpoint on the significance of genetic resources in adapting to climate change. So can you tell us about the urgency of adapting research for the major crops, like wheat and rice, and to ensure food security under the scenarios of climate change and global population growth?
Thank you, Fujita-san, for the question. The urgency of adapting to climate change is actually immense, as its impacts from floods, heat, the outbreaks of the pests and diseases are already really threatening global food security. So mitigating these negative impacts from biotic and abiotic stresses is a primary adaptation measure, with this genetic improvements serving as a critical component. But enhancing this stress tolerance is a key, but it's increasingly difficult. The hurdle is going up and up as the intensity and frequency of these extreme events are rising with every degree of warming. So we must acknowledge that we are approaching, unfortunately, the adaptation limits for the maintaining yields and the rising environmental pressures. So this is alarming. So we need to have really strong efforts to mitigate the climate change at the same time. For staple crops like wheat and rice, there's another really serious concern, that is the yield potentials. The yield potentials are unfortunately showing some signs of plateauing, particularly rice and wheat. It is a contrast to some other major crops like maize and soybean that show almost consistent growth, and that's also alarming. So we need some urgent efforts to make this boost the yield potentials at the same time. And to do that, we also do the ordinary research breeding program, but at the same time, we need some program that even leverage some of the positive side of climate change. For instance, rising temperature, also the rising CO2. So those are the issues that can be leveraged in some way to enhance yield potential. But at the same time, I also I'd like to mention something about the minor crops or under-researched crops. They are as important as major crops, as they provide important source of nutrients, and they are really under-researched. Diversifying cropping system, not just for major crops, another key issues to be resilient against the climate change. So I think I just reiterate what most people speakers said, the importance of these minor crops. But the finally, that said, the genetic improvements alone are not sufficient to address all the full spectrum of climate change challenges posed by climate change. And we need a comprehensive approach, one that integrates advanced breeding with better resource management and sustainable farming practices and resilient infrastructure. By this taking this coordinated and urgent action, we can build a more resilient agricultural system capable of securing the food supply for a growing population in an increasing volatile climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hasegawa. And you mentioned that the importance of a comprehensive approach and to building a more resilient agricultural system. Yeah, that is very important thing. Thank you. So, and next, and Professor Matsuoka. So the wheat has been domesticated for a long time. So modern species have lost the potential for resilience that wild-type species possess. So what do you think about the possibility, or how would you balance the loss of desirable traits of modern species?
Okay, thank you for the question. And then my simple question is it's the possibility of wheat germplasm is priceless, basically, limitless. Because in the genus Triticum and the groups, there are about 30 species, and each of species are the reservoir of alleles that may not exist in bread wheat. And then if we can transfer these alleles to bread wheat, they should provide some new novel phenotypes in bread wheat. So we have, each of these species have the potential. So we have at least 30 species. So this is the reason why I think the wheat germplasm is priceless and countless, limitless. So yes, and then I would like to add that we need to do more pre-breeding in order to achieve our goals to save our next generation from hunger. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Matsuoka. And thank you for telling me the importance of the wild wheat in wheat improvement. So, and next, Dr. Lamaya. So rice is cultivated and in a wide range of the growing areas. So thus the development of new varieties needs to meet the challenges of each local environment. So your presentation highlighted the potential of using the technologies such as AI and optimizing and G/E. And in turn, so what strategies and do you think are necessary to make more use of gene bank?
Thank you for the question. There are two, among the several strategies, I presented two, which is AI application in the gene bank era and how we can better exploit G/E to utilize gene and genetic resources. These are two separate topics. Going forward, maybe AI can come in to even help us with optimizing those G/E, but right now we are not there yet. Among other strategies that is relevant for us as an international center is, we have to remember we are not the only institute doing this type of work. So there are plenty of other researchers who are actually doing similar work in the national program. So we can enhance their program by enhancing the access of the genetic resources to these. So at ERI, we conduct, every year we send out 25 to 30,000 samples globally. And so there are a lot of other users that we have to also tackle to understand their needs and to come up with strategy how to better serve them. That is one of our strategy. To attend this, what we do is every few years, mostly 5 years, we do conduct a user survey and try to understand what is the trend, what are the users looking for. So our recent survey was just around the pandemic time, and then one interesting thing which came out was, going forward, the users want wild species in more. They are more interested in that to address the climate change. This is the message that we got. And one of the also recommendation was, from a gene bank perspective, wild species are difficult to manage and there is very less amount of seed production. So we give very less. In our center, we give only 50 seeds. Many times the partners want more. So since the wild species is going to become much and more important going forward, we said, okay, let's tackle this strategy. So we have now revamped the regeneration system for the wild species at ERI, so that now we can produce more seeds, and then we are able to attend to their needs. So this is one of the strategy that we are following. Also, to make the genetic resources much more amenable, we have to make sure that the system in which we provide this material is more smooth. Currently, there are some bottlenecks. We are much better, but still there is a lot of bottlenecks to solve. It's not as easy. Sometimes the request takes months before the seed is provided and available to the researcher. So there are few steps we can address that. Then also, I think this was pointed out by others also, the current information system, database systems that gene banks handle, somehow are not so user-friendly, unfortunately. And I myself am a user, and I have this complaint myself. So what are the ways in which we can make the information easily accessible? So here again, AI can come in. And then there are now, we are developing what is called as chatbots, where the users can just communicate with the system and they get the required information, and so that it becomes faster, easy available. Right now, we have to run pillar to post to access certain information and then see what I want. So these are some of the additional strategy in addition to what I mentioned in my talk, which could further help to make the genetic resources more useful and available to the users.
Yeah, Dr. Lama here, and thank you for the important comment and about promoting the gene bank and by improving user demand and user friendliness. Thank you for providing us with very interesting topics as the importance of a comprehensive approach to building a more resilient agricultural system. So the importance of the wiry and in wheat improvement and promoting the use of gene banks by improving the user demand and user friendliness. And Dr. Yamanaka, in your presentation, so taking advantage of its subtropical environment, so JIRCAS has been conducting research on the conservation and utilization of tropical genetic resources through international joint research over the past 50 years. So what are some of the best lessons and for the future of international collaboration of genetic resources?
Thank you very much for comment and the question, Dr. Fujita. So during these 50 years, of course, I don't know the 50 years ago, but we have many experiences and learned so much from our research activities. The first point to be mentioned regarding the handling of genetic resources in international collaborative research is that the international attitude toward genetic resources have changed drastically in the last 20-30 years. As you know, the CBD, Convention of Biological Diversity, adopted at the Rio Summit in 1992, reconfirmed the sovereign rights of the country of origin and regulated compliance with national laws and regulations. In addition, in 2010, the Nagoya Protocol was established under the CBD, which establishes law and regulations concerning opportunities for the access to genetic resources and fair and equal benefit sharing, ABS, arising from the utilization. And besides the CBD and the ABS, the ITPGRFA, International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, was also adopted at the FAO. And these three treaties have been signed and are effective even in Japan. As long as JIRCAS is conducting research activities on genetic resources with international collaboration, it is a law that must be complied with, and those who handle genetic resources are required to take the utmost care in their handlings of genetic resources. We also take sufficient preparation and prior coordination into account when introducing and also providing genetic resources. At the moment, some developing countries have not yet developed the domestic laws that correspond to these international treaties, but we think that more careful procedures will be required in the future, as they will no doubt be strictly applied in all countries. Considering the current situation, it is not easy to introduce genetic resources from overseas to Japan in the future. And the genetic resources that have been already introduced in the past and are currently in a possession will become extremely valuable. Thank you.
Dr. Yamanaka, thank you for the important comment increasing the usefulness of currently held genetic resources and through the entry into force of the Nagoya protocols. So we don't have enough time, so is there anyone has any questions about the presentation or panel discussion at this symposium? Only one question. So is there anyone?
To all the speakers, thank you very much for wonderful talks. I'm very inspired to all the sessions you gave. My question is to everyone. Now, this is about research as usual, but when do we shift this to crisis management? I'm from the Norinchukin Research Institute, which is Agricultural and Forestry Central Bank's research institution, which means I am in the position to advise the Japanese farmers what we should be doing. And from the talk today, I think the climate change is really serious. And it's going to be even more serious because the fossil subsidies is over $1 trillion, and it's not going to decrease. And oil majors are not going to give up their rights, and also the oil-producing countries are not going to give up their lives too. And United States has elected Donald Trump to be the next president, and that he's going to protect the fossil industry. And UN climate change or SDGs are going to fail, meaning that we are going to face the big climate change very soon. And I think we need to be prepared. I mean, the farmers need to be prepared to change their seeds, their farming styles, the insect management. And so when and how are we going to advise is my question. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. And we don't have enough time, so please answer, Dr. Hasegawa.
I think our first thing, we shouldn't give up curbing the climate change. Well, that's one thing. The other thing is the involvement of farmers' participation from the early step of this development of innovative technology is another issue. So I think sharing information now, what are the impacts currently we are seeing, what are the technology we can develop, and should be shared from the beginning with the farmers. And then that will, in that way, the adoption of the technology can be much quicker. So hopefully that we can provide more, better platform to enhance this activity. Thank you. Very short answer, sir.
Do you have any comments from the panelists? Please.
Maybe I think we need to go into emergency situation now. I think we shouldn't be waiting because breeding takes such a long time, especially I work on coffee genetic resources. A coffee breeding program can take 25 to 30 years. So we need to think about 2050 and beyond now, and we have all those predictions that we are doing. And looking at those predictions, if that is what is predicted, we need to start breeding now for 2050.
Just to supplement to what Sharda mentioned, if you remember my slide about my last work in Vietnam, this is one strategy where best adapted material is provided to the hands of the user today It's not about a promise of breeding a better line tomorrow. So that is one way in gene banks can contribute to some of the crisis management scenario wherever possible.
Thank you. So, and is there anyone has a question and comment? Okay, thank you. So Dr. Krishnan and Dr. Hasegawa. So can you give us your final message and on how the international community can promote genetic resources researches to ensure food security in the era of global warming? And Dr. Krishna, please.
Sure. So gene banks around the world are the guardians of crop diversity. And many gene banks are underfunded, which impacts the operations of the gene banks. So if you go nationally, a lot of national gene banks are very under-resourced and underfunded, and so that impacts the quality of the material that they're conserving in the gene banks. So we need to ensure that gene banks are very well-funded as well as well-managed to make sure that they are meeting international standards. And that will ensure the diversity, the crop diversity is protected, not just for our current generation, but for future generations.
Thank you. I will just reiterate what Yamanaka-san said. This international community is really important, but respecting the safeguarding rights of local communities is really immensely important. Also, ensuring equitable access to those materials are really important. And then breeding has to be accelerated. At the same time, also, it is critically important that effectiveness of these innovation must be evaluated across multiple dimensions. And so economic, environmental, institutional, and physical dimensions will be also important. So I think breeders and also the other scientists must collaborate very closely internationally to make this effectiveness evaluation very effective. And also, bear in mind that these target environments are unfortunately changing. So the breeding targets will be changing all the time. So we have to look ahead, like Sarada-san said, 30, 40 years from now. So those are the target environments. So the 10 years effort, at the same time, we have to make 10 years efforts to curb the climate change. Again, let me conclude the sentence again. So don't give up to try to fight this climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krishnan and Dr. Hasegawa. So it's time. So and thank you all panelists for this interactive and insightful discussion on today's topic and straightforward answers. So we will retain the international research collaboration. And multidisciplinary approaches are important to build the resilient food system in the era of global warming. So especially, we need to conserve and restore the diversity of nutritionally rich genetic resources and to harness their inherent resilience to biotic and abiotic sources. There are still a lot of challenges, but we will continue working hard to address them. So thank you to all of you and who attended on site and online, and we hope to see you again on future occasions. Finally, please give a round of applause to all panelists.
I would like to thank the panelists and the panel chair for a very insightful discussion. Please return to your seats. Thank you. Now, Dr. Seiji Yanagihara, Vice President of JIRCAS, will give you his closing remarks. Dr. Yanagihara, please come up to the stage.
Distinguished guests, all the participants here and online, good afternoon. I'm Seiji Yanagihara, Vice President of JIRCAS. As we conclude this year's symposium, I'd like to take a moment to offer some closing remarks on behalf of organizers. First, I'd like to deeply thank to Dr. Sarada Krishnan and Dr. Toshihiro Hasegawa for your insightful keynote speech today. And to express my gratitude to all the session speakers for your valuable contribution to this symposium. I would also like to thank everyone else for your active participation in this symposium. A little short in time for more questions or comments. I'm sorry about that. The JIRCAS International Symposium is held every year with the aim of providing a forum for participants from National Agriculture Research Institute, universities, and international agriculture research organizations in developing regions to discuss and exchange ideas on the challenges facing agriculture, forestry, and fisheries in developing regions, as well as their sustainable development. This year, as the global average temperature reaches an all-time high, we focused on research related to resilient genetic resources under the global boiling era. For over 50 years, JIRCAS has been working with partners to develop crops that can be sustainably cultivated even in poor agricultural environment in tropical and subtropical regions. However, dealing with global boiling is a new challenge. Thus, it is important to conserve and utilize genetic resource diversity for both genetic resources that have not been used until now and those that have already evolved in research and development. As discussed in today's lectures and panel sessions, I believe that the conservation and the utilization of genetic resources in building resilient food system is an area where international joint research is indispensable. I hope this symposium has provided an opportunity to explore further strategies for the conservation and utilization of genetic resources. In closing, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries, and National Agriculture and Food Research Organization for their support of JIRCAS International Symposium. I would also like to express my appreciation to everyone involved in the planning and execution of this event. Thank you very much, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yanagihara. And this concludes the JIRCAS International Symposium 2024. As you leave, please make sure to return your name tags and simultaneous interpretation devices at the reception desk. Also, please make sure that you have all your belongings with you. I hope you have a pleasant evening ahead. Thank you.